Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the Mary Grace Show, and I am Mary Grace, the voice of sanity to help you navigate politics, culture, wellness, faith, and world events. Today, I have with me one of our favorites here on the show, our friend Sam Faddis, also known as Sam the Spy. So we're going to do a little bit of spy talk, and good to have you here, Sam. It seems like forever. Every time we part company, it's way too long, and here we are in the first day of spring. It's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
It's great to be here. I am in my work clothes. It is such a glorious day outside. I've been outside building stuff, sawing, making things. I'm not any good at it, but I enjoy being outside doing it.
That's the way it should be. This is the
Exactly.
time, and I love this time of year because it's not too hot, and we're actually getting ready to go buy some flowers and plant pansies in our flower boxes, and it's a great time to be outside. And we're a little bit behind because we got delayed last fall with all the stuff with the hospital and things like that, and our backyard is a mess. Everything's a mess, but you know what? It's okay because now we're getting into spring again and we can finally get out. I did see the first mosquito the other day,
Oh,
and
really?
yes, and then there's a couple of wasps. They're kind of trying to rebuild, and it's always something. But here we are. We have a beautiful it's a beautiful space in the backyard. The flowers are blooming, and we're happy to be here. And I'm happy that my dad's doing good and moving around pretty well. So, you
Good.
know what? The other day, listen, this is kind of funny. Everybody's gonna laugh. I was sitting outside with him, and I said, I have to go in and do a show, and I'll be about 30 to 40 minutes. And he had a project that he was working on. He was trying to pull some vines down off the lattice. Well, he decided that he was gonna climb up the stepladder.
Mm,
And so I looked before I went live, I looked out the door, which is right over here, and I saw him walking by with a stepladder in his hand. It was like just like something out of Seinfeld, right? I was like,
yeah.
so thankfully we hadn't gone live. I said, "Can you hold on just a minute?" So I thought, well, I guess he's feeling more confident. That's a good sign. But I had to have a little negotiation about the stepladder.
Yeah.
It was just the short one, but still, I'm like, you're 87.
Yeah.
This is not a stable environment. And so I had the stepladder in next to me during the show. I was like, I'm just going to bring it in the house. But that was kind of funny. I thought this is like a mixed blessing that he's feeling good enough to do that, but it's also kinda scary. Just keep 2 feet on the ground, dad. That's all I ask for the next 30 minutes. So, now he's watching NCAA tournament, so I think we're good.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, now, listen, we've got a lot to talk about. The swamp is resisting being drained big
Yes.
time.
Yes.
And you have deep experience in the intelligence community. And we talked about this last time you were on the show. You said that there are people inside resisting. And I wanted to get an update on that. What's going on deep in the bowels of the agency, up in the Beltway and inside Langley, but also other parts of the intelligence community. Give us an update.
Well, yeah, you and I were talking about this as and I think my fear was particularly like running around Pennsylvania, sort of on the political front. Everybody was super psyched. Everybody's like high fiving and saying we are so back, and just basically celebrate, in full on celebratory mode,
Hmm.
which is fine. Okay, people worked really hard and they deserve to celebrate. And I'm not. It's just like if you're happy we won a battle, that's cool. If you think we won the war, just like hold that thought for just 1 second,
Yeah.
because the war is a long way from over. So, I mean, inside the agencies, what do you have? You have full on resistance, and and keep in mind that at most of these large agencies, we have made very little impact in terms of personnel changes. So people talking about, Doge and USAID basically being gutted, or, well, depending on what judge has ruled in the last 5 minutes, gutted, not gutted. In
Yeah.
any event, there are some agencies
Yeah.
like that, but and there are a lot of agencies where basically you have a cabinet appointee in charge and maybe a deputy, and everybody else that's there is somebody that was in place under Biden and probably has been there much longer than that. So CIA, just as an example, because I'm closest to it, we have a director, Ratcliffe, and the deputy that he brought in. And to my knowledge, that's the full extent of the senior personnel changes at CIA. So, and even at FBI with Cash and Bongino,
Mhm.
you know, a few more. The head of the FBI field office is gone because he decided to get a little too brazen in his
Is
resistance.
that the one in New York? The one that
Work at the field office. So
Mhm.
uh, he's gone. But other than that, the FBI is largely unchanged. I think actually
Mhm.
the FBI field office is a classic example of just how big an issue this is, right? The FBI field office is in New York is the largest field office in the country.
Mhm.
It's not just the largest field office, the largest
Yeah. In the whole country.
right.
That's the one where the director was, heralded with bagpipes when he left, right? Celebrated, is that the
Yeah,
one?
well, so the first thing he did was when the announcement was made early on, I think one of the first things it was either cash or maybe actually came from the attorney general. Anyway, there was an order that we want a list of all the special agents that worked January 6th cases.
Mhm.
Okay, we want the names of everybody involved in
Yeah.
that. And he refused that order.
Yeah.
That wasn't a request, that wasn't a suggestion, that was a direct order. And he's part of the Department of Justice, and he
Mhm.
refused the order. And then he sent out a message to all his troops, to these thousands of agents, telling them to dig in to resist. An open message in his official capacity saying you should resist in effect, you should resist the president of the United States.
Yeah.
And he didn't do that like after a couple of beers in his living room at home talking to his buddies. He did that on an official computer, an official message in his official capacity. So that's pretty brazen. And then he was told to turn over, I think, the Epstein files, and they didn't produce anything, and they had to rely on a whistleblower to tell him that he wasn't
Yeah.
producing.
Yeah.
Again, a direct order from the attorney general, and he's a direct subordinate, and he just
Mhm.
basically says, "You can drop dead. I'm not doing what you told me to do." So
Right.
that guy got himself fired. But yes, as you noted, when he left the building, there
Mhm.
was like a celebration, not a celebration that he was going,
Yeah.
but just a huge crowd of FBI agents celebrating him and cheering him as
Mhm.
a hero.
Like a
And
serenade.
precisely. So that give you a pretty
Yeah.
good idea
Easy.
of the mood inside the FBI when this guy who is defying the attorney general and the president of the United States is celebrated by his coworkers. So bottom line, we got a long way to go, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you're going to have to fire a lot more people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's disheartening because when you for example, the people who are being let go from these government jobs, accountants, whatnot, when the media has paraded them around like they're victims,
Mhm.
and they're saying things like, "I just love my country," and it's I could get a job in the private sector
Right,
tomorrow, but I'm doing this out of
right.
love and duty for my country. That's a bunch of BS because they're making a very good salary, very good benefits, very good pension awaits them, h top tier healthcare, and for them and their partner, um, that's the reality of it,
Yeah.
and they're getting a, bump in salary for living in DC, and the per capita
Mhm.
income of the DC and Beltway workers is higher than anywhere in the country. I mean,
Mhm.
the per capita income is is higher than in San Francisco or Los Angeles or
Mhm.
Miami or Chicago. And they're acting like victims because they know that the gravy train is coming to an end. And all of these people who are crying and complaining about reduction in force, well, they had warning. I mean, they knew this was coming.
Mhm.
They knew before. I mean, they should have been working on their resumes the minute they knew Trump won, and they should have been preparing for this. And then they were given the opportunity to take the 8 month severance, and they chose not to.
Right.
I'm sorry. There's a point at which you have to understand you're being treated like the rest of the country in
Yep.
the private sector, which is your job is over. Move on. If you're that good, then you shouldn't have any problem getting a job in the private sector. If you're half as good as you think you are, you go out there and you compete with the rest of the people. And if you're in the tech, then you go ahead and compete with all the HB1 Indian workers that have been imported and that are hiring only Indian. That's a whole nother topic. But
Yeah.
it's crazy to me that the level of entitlement these people have. So that's my little soapbox. But it just
Well, look, let me throw something else in
it
here.
rankles me.
From a political standpoint,
Yeah,
if you're an employee of the FBI and Donald Trump got elected and you despise Donald Trump and he appointed an attorney general and you have no respect for her, basically politically you think this is a disaster, you cannot implement these policies.
yeah,
Okay, you're a US citizen, you're entitled to that opinion.
yeah,
What you're not entitled to do is stay in position inside a federal agency
yeah,
and then work to frustrate the direct orders of the elected representatives of the people.
yeah,
So if you're the head of the FBI field office and they're telling you to do this and you think morally you can't do it, okay, that's your
right.
position. I don't agree, but okay, you do.
Yep.
Then man up, tender your resignation letter of resignation and walk out the door. And then if you think you can do better, go run for political office yourself. You
Mhm.
cannot stay within the machine, within the bureaucracy,
Yeah. That
run by the chief executive, and then think you have the right to individually
Mhm.
frustrate
Mhm.
those things. You either carry out the orders or you walk.
But
That's clear.
here's the other thing though that I think is this attitude that they have the moral high ground is
Yes.
it's really important.
Yes.
It's critical to understand this because they actually think that the defiance and resistance that they're engaging in is is a higher calling
That's exactly right.
than
Yeah.
doing than following orders because they've been convinced on an emotional level that Trump is literally Hitler and that by following orders of this administration, you are following what they consider to be unlawful, unconstitutional orders. And this is the same attitude that we saw during the first administration when we saw people committing violence against Trump supporters under the sincere belief that words are violence. And
Yeah.
so they're justified in striking back or what they would call self-defense
Hmm.
in physical assault or attack because they have been convinced that the words are violence. And this attitude, it all ties together because they truly believe that they are doing a service to their country just by resisting. And if
Hmm.
you don't understand that, look at Alexander Vindman. He's a perfect example when he was the whistleblower who was coming against Trump in the coup attempt and in the fake impeachment. That it all ties together. They have this sincere belief, just like with Peter Strzok and his lover Lisa Page. They had a sincerely held belief that that the country was in a crisis and that the insurance policy that they had to keep Trump out of office took precedence over any oath that they signed to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States. This is the attitude that we see within the entire entrenched bureaucracy. And this is why Elon Musk's life is in danger.
Mhm.
Um, because also the people that are behind this, that are perpetuating this idea and using these bureaucratic paper pushers as pawns, they have so much to lose financially.
Mhm.
And this is where the truth is coming out, really. It's the financial uh, gravy train that's coming to an end.
Mhm.
And so the emotional manipulation that is pushing people at these mid-level jobs to defy orders is,
Mhm.
it's all tied together. Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think, not to go all like political science geek on you, but
mhm.
although that is what my bachelor's degree was, until I figured out that nobody hires political science majors for anything. It's a completely useless degree. But anyway, philosophically, this goes to the heart of the type of government we have and the whole concept of a republic. I mean, the ultimate question is, where does power come from? Who holds power?
Right.
And in the republic, power derives from the people, right? And so you can elect people to act on your behalf, and
Mhm.
you can appoint people, yada yada, but power rests with the people.
Yeah.
And there are alternative forms of government, monarchies, where somebody who claims they were anointed by God holds all the power, or an aristocracy where there's like some select group of people who are better than we are and more polished, and they get to rule. Okay, there are alternative forms of government. Ours is either based on the fact that the people hold power or it's not. Well, fundamentally, what you're talking about is a whole bunch of these folks in the federal bureaucracy have ceased to believe that power derives from the people. They don't. They believe, in effect, they are the new aristocracy. They are the elite. They're smarter, better, and they are, in fact, entitled to rule. And they look on you with complete contempt.
Yeah.
And at Ann Magazine, we wrote an article, I don't know, 6 months ago now, because I think it was Rasmussen did a whole big long study and poll where they talked to federal workers and surveyed their attitudes. And they demonstrated graphically that if you go in the senior workforce, the senior managers in the federal workforce,
Mhm.
what you find is their attitudes are not just different from everyday people, but when asked directly, the critical questions like, do you think you should have to listen to the people? Effectively, what they said is, no, we're smarter, we're better, we know
Mhm.
better, and we don't have to be bound by what the people tell us. Well, when you get to that point, really, you don't have a republic anymore,
Yeah.
right? You have
Yeah.
this giant, unelected, unconstitutional fourth branch of government, and they believe, honestly, not all of them, but many of them, that they essentially have the right to tell you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good, yeah, good summary. It's the nanny state, right? It's an extension of what we saw over the past 5 years, wanting to control what you put on your body, what you put in your body, where you go, where you stand, where you're allowed to congregate, all of that.
How to raise your
Yeah,
children,
how to raise your children,
everything.
how to school your children, that the state knows best, right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
so this is an extension of that, and it's a very, it is a, there's an arrogance that's tied to it as
Yes,
well.
yes.
And I see this in my area because we have a lot of libs that came down from up north, and now they've
Hmm.
completely ruined my county with their politics. And I see the attitude all the time that the state knows best, that the
Yep,
government knows best, and you just shut up and listen and do what you're told.
that's exactly it.
And just like with the mandates, for example, when you try to tell somebody this is not a law, nobody even voted on this. There was no judicial process, or so there was no legislative process to get any of this in place. So It's just it's a rule. You know, the governor said you have to do it. The government said you have to do it. I'm like, that's literally not how our government works. We literally have a legislative process. Like there's something called Congress, there's something called the Senate, and then there's a bill and it has to be voted on. Like that's how laws get passed. And you're sitting here arguing with people who think that a flimsy piece of cloth is going to save humanity. And I'm like, the only thing I need saving from is your stupidity, you know?
That's right.
So, like,
No,
please
that's exactly right. But
stop.
it's just like, who the hell, excuse me, gave you the authority? Where do
Yeah.
you think you got this authority from? You have
Yeah.
no authority to make here telling me I got to wear a mask is ridiculous,
Yeah. Yeah.
or to begin think you can essentially intrude yourself between me and my children, between me and
Yeah.
my spouse. You know,
But it's the
drop
same
dead, buddy.
attitude. It's the same attitude, and I think the crux of what we're getting at is we don't wanna relive or relitigate what happened during the pandemic, but
Right.
what we're getting at is that it's the same belief, it's the same underlying belief, which is that the state knows best, and
That's right.
all of these entrenched bureaucrats truly believe that. They are a living, breathing example,
Yes.
and that brings us to the judiciary. What
Yes.
in the world is just take it over. I can't even.
Well, what
You
we
know,
have now, I mean, this is
it's
so we were
crazy.
talking about resistance within the bureaucracies.
Yeah,
Then there's this whole separate issue, which
yeah.
is resistance of the judiciary. And what we have is a bunch of district court judges, federal district court judges by and large, all around the country who are presuming to issue rulings that are effectively restraining orders or injunctions of some kind. In other words, they're
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
judgments in the sense of damages and so forth. They are what's called in law equitable relief. They're requiring
Mhm.
action, and what they're effectively doing is blocking uh, a whole series of things that the Trump administration
Mhm.
has done. I with with virtually no legal basis whatsoever. In fact, look, I tell you, I mean, I think there's a really fundamental issue here. Most of the press coverage is talking about specific cases, like they ruled that Doge did something wrong in regard to
Mhm.
firing people from USAID. I think all of these rulings are nonsensical, but okay.
Yeah.
Most of the press coverage gets lost in that. I think there's a more fundamental issue. When from whence did a district court judge acquire the authority to supersede the orders of the president of the United States or his cabinet officials? Right? I mean, a district court judge, so let's say Washington State. There's an Eastern District of Washington, so sort of everything east of the Cascades. All right, so there's some judge out in Spokane, and he sits there and he rules on cases that occur in Eastern Washington. The country's carved up like this all over the place. Okay, how does he have the authority to issue injunctive relief and order the entire federal government everywhere in the United States, issue an order that affects them? If I went to file a lawsuit in the Eastern District of Washington and I didn't live in the Eastern District of Washington, the court wouldn't, if I filed the papers, they would be immediately thrown out
Okay.
because that court has no jurisdiction because I
Mhm.
don't live there. Or let's just either I would have to live there or the person I'm suing would have to live there. There has to be what they call a judicial nexus, a
Okay.
connection. If
Right.
the case concerns something happening in New York City and I'm trying to file a lawsuit in Washington State, the court's going to toss the thing out because what they're going to say is this particular district court doesn't have any jurisdiction over New York
Mhm.
City. So
Right.
how the heck would a judge in that district or any other
Yeah.
district around the country purport to have authority to issue an order affecting the entire federal government all over the
Yeah.
United States? And this actually is an issue that has been discussed in a
Yeah.
lot of legal
Yeah.
journals and so forth. And I think it's something that the Trump administration needs to get the Supreme Court to consider directly, because the logical is that every time the president of the United States issues an order, we will then have every single district court judge in the state, in the country, capable of nullifying it. And by the way, no guarantee that they will all agree. So instead of having a federal government, we're now going to be governed by district court judges with no unifying principle. It's madness, and I don't think it's legally sustainable. And I think, honestly, it should have been challenged a long time ago. I would suggest the Trump administration ought to get a case to the Supreme Court as quickly as possible, in the hopes of getting the Supreme Court to rule and say, hey, guy, you're the district court judge somewhere in the Eastern District of Virginia. The best you can do is issue a ruling for the people that are actually involved in the lawsuit in your district. That's by the most you could do. You cannot possibly issue a ruling affecting the whole federal government.
And exactly. And this is the argument that that Stephen Miller is making. Have you seen him on CNN? It's just pure gold.
He's a very smart guy and a very sharp legal mind.
You have like a double-digit IQ teleprompter reader trying to argue anything geopolitical or legal with Stephen Miller. So then it's very entertaining, because he's dancing circles around this lady and her, like the smoke, the brain cells, like she's trying to get like two neurons firing, and Stephen Miller is on to the next topic. And he's going, no, you're not listening and you're not understanding. and it's true, because he's trying to explain basic policy to her, basic constitutional law. And she's sitting there saying, well, the president can't do what he wants. And Stephen Miller saying, no, actually, yeah, he can, because he's following the Constitution, which supersedes what that district court judge is trying to do. The district court, and then his argument is, how is it possible that you think it's okay or even permissible for a district court judge to, for example, to control the movements of our troops, to have control over a military operation, which is what moving terrorists out of our country is. President Trump's number one duty is to protect the sovereignty of our borders and to protect our nation from foreign invaders, which is exactly what Trinidad is. And when Trump is in the middle of returning them, or actually putting them in El Salvador because of the multinational agreement that he has with the president of El Salvador, then he is absolutely within the bounds of the Constitution. I wanted to ask you what you think about John Roberts, because clearly John Roberts is either just a feckless coward or he's compromised in some way, or both. Because for him to come out and rule in any way that does not support what President Trump is doing is sadly not surprising based on what we've seen from him. But where do you see this going?
Well,
it wasn't a ruling, it was a commentary.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I think you're talking about the comment about impeaching judges, right? And look, I think it was completely inappropriate comment on his part. Impeachment is, by what right and what logic would you say that Congress, which has the authority to impeach federal officials for misconduct, should not be allowed to discuss that or invoke that power? I don't know why you think you have that right. I don't have any idea why you think it's appropriate. There's a broader issue here of this concept of judicial supremacy, which is sort of, you're supposed to have three separate branches of government that are effectively equal in authority, but have different spheres of influence, if you will. There isn't anywhere in the Constitution where it actually says, like Congress and the president, where it actually says that the courts are essentially like the referees on a football field, that they're the ultimate. like if the Supreme Court
Mhm.
speaks, that everybody has to shut up and do what they're told. I mean, there's an argument to be
Mhm.
made here that it is supposed to be much more a matter of give and take amongst the branches, and again, not like somehow the Supreme Court is superior to the president and the Congress. And I'm not advocating this frivolously, or we should just ignore the rule of law or ignore the role of courts. But the as you highlighted very clearly a few minutes ago, we're now in a world where is elected by nobody are presuming to be able to issue orders to the armed forces and Homeland Security and direct them what they can and cannot do. I mean, this
Mhm.
one order actually said this is a judge, a federal district court judge, ordering aircraft to turn around in flight
Right.
and return to the United States.
Mhm.
Okay, well, if you accept that principle,
Yeah.
then presumably that judge and any other such judge could issue those orders anytime, anywhere, right? We could be launching airstrikes on the Houthis, and they could be issuing orders telling
Mhm.
F-18s to turn around and not drop bombs, or directing the movement of warships. I mean,
Yeah.
there's kind of madness here at the heart of this. You can't have a functioning government if you accept that all of these district court judges have this authority.
Mm.
Which is why I come back to the principle. I think we ought to push the administration ought to push a case up to the Supreme Court,
Mhm.
or for that matter, ask the Supreme Court to take it as a case of what they call original jurisdiction. In other words, it's a matter of such constitutional import that you don't take it on appeal from another court. You actually take it
Okay.
directly to the Supreme
Okay.
Court, and you say, we need a ruling on this. Because right now, what you got is the people who command the United States military are a host of district court judges scattered around the country. This is
Right.
a true constitutional crisis, we think.
Right, right, that makes sense, and I think that, when you're talking about the Supreme Court, the point that you brought up about the Supreme Court kind of being the be all end all to the country, that's not actually what the function of the court is. The function of the Supreme
Precisely.
Court is to render a ruling based on what the Constitution says.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
right? It's not up to them just to pull things out of their hat. For
No, and you
and
and you
that's really what John Roberts was doing. He was
yeah, I
opining
think
on something.
I think he's kind of lost in space. He's part of the system.
Yeah.
He's I mean, there are people worse than him, certainly, but
Mhm.
he's not part of the solution. I mean, the
Yeah.
Constitution says pretty clearly the president's the commander in chief of the armed forces.
Mhm.
I would
Mhm.
think on that basis alone, you could say, all right, district court judges, you don't have any authority to
Mhm.
issue orders to the armed forces of the United States. There's one guy,
Right.
one person
Yeah.
in charge.
Yeah.
That ain't you.
Right.
Knock it off.
Right, right. And it's yeah, to me, it was just, like, who is he answering to? Who is John Roberts answering to when he puts out a statement like that? And apparently, it was part of a larger statement that nobody can get the context of. And that's concerning. Who is he communicating with, and why does he even feel that it's helpful or relevant to put out a statement like
I
that?
think it's completely inappropriate for the Chief Justice to weigh in and start presuming that he has the authority
Mhm.
to admonish congressmen and
Yeah.
senators over them exercising their constitutional
Mhm.
authority. They think the judiciary is out of control.
Right.
They're the
And
ones who
yeah.
get to decide whether they're going to attempt to impeach that person. And he's got
Yeah.
no case before him,
Mhm.
and
Right.
he ought to be
Exactly.
quiet, is what he ought to do.
Yeah, and this is and I think, like, what's next? Is he gonna start writing editorials for the Washington Post
Precisely.
or the New York
Exactly.
Times?
Exactly. Your point is well taken. It's
Mhm.
all wrong. You're supposed to be a judge. You rule when the case comes before you. If you ask a judicial candidate in the place of, state candidate who's running for office, where unlike federal judges, they're elected, and you ask them how they would rule in a particular case,
Mhm. Right.
every judicial candidate who has any idea what they're doing and understands ethics will tell you they cannot answer that. As a matter of judicial ethics, I can't opine on an issue that has not
Mhm.
been presented to me formally. It is inappropriate. I can't, as a judge, run around saying, this is how I would decide these cases.
Mhm,
That's
and
that,
that's what Kavanaugh did during when he was in his hearings. That he answered that on quite a few, questions.
yet every judicial I've never heard a judicial candidate
Mhm,
answer
mhm.
any way other than that,
Okay,
because it's such a basic,
okay.
well-known principle. So then
Yeah,
this
and
would
now we have
seem
the
to be
Chief
generally
Justice
the same
of
thing.
the
Yeah,
yeah.
Chief Justice ought to be quiet.
Mhm. Good,
Just
yeah, I
like
like
when
it.
they stand, look, when they show up for the State of the Union, or like for Trump's speech, in Congress, when they do not clap and they do not stand, and they are there as a gesture of respect, but as
Mhm,
a matter of decorum, they do not express their personal opinions by standing, cheering, not standing. They stay above and outside of the political process.
mhm,
That's the
mhm.
way they should be.
Interesting. Yes, yes. We need to take a quick break.
Yes,
When we come back, I want to discuss a little bit about what's going on in the Middle East. Just a little, like, yeah.
just a little.
There's not a powder keg or anything brewing over there. We'll come back. I want to remind people that here on the Mary Grace Show, I'm going to take Sam off camera for just a second, and we'll be right back. He's not leaving, so if I kick you out by accident, come back, Sam. I'll be right back. Here on the Mary Grace Show, we have a couple of ways that you can stay in touch and support the show. One is make sure you get on my mailing list. That's marygracemedia.com. You can scan the QR code here on the screen, marygracemedia.com. That gets you to all of my sponsors. You can go to the shopping tab. You can go there and see all of our partners, and you can also get in touch with us. You can also get on the mailing list. That's marygracemedia.com. We do have a new partner here with the Mary Grace Show, and I'm excited about this because we are working now with Augusta Precious Metals. So many people are concerned right now about what's happening with the markets, what is happening with with the retirement, inflation, things like that. You probably have heard that banks are buying up gold and they're stockpiling it. There must be a reason for that. And you also heard people talk about diversifying, putting some of your money in gold, putting part of your IRA in gold. How does that exactly work? Well, I have a free guide that you can get by scanning the code on your screen. You can also go in the show notes and get the link. When you go to Augusta Precious Metals, you're going to get this free guide. And if you scan the QR code, it's going to be right there. It's for educational purposes. And if you want to know more, you can indicate that when you get the guide. But this is going to help you get started. And hopefully, you'll be able to work with the team there to get more information about how you can maybe, if you choose, to move some of your retirement money into gold to help you plan for the future and learn more about what's going on with inflation, with the volatility of the markets. I'm not an advisor, so I'm not going to tell you more, but go to that link there on the screen and get the free guide, no obligation, just to start the process of getting educated. And you may be surprised, even if you think you know a lot, there's a lot in that guide that could help you take some further steps and feel more confident in the decisions you're making. So that's right there on the screen, and I will put the link in the show notes. The other thing I want to remind people is that we are supporting America First companies, and one of those is our friends over at griddownchowdown.com. What does that mean, grid down? It means that if you're stockpiling meat, if you bought half a cow and you got it in the freezer and you lose power, what is going to happen to all that meat? Maybe you have a generator, maybe you don't. Our friends at Grid Down, they were in a situation where a lot of stuff spoiled and they wanted to have a backup plan, and they started freeze drying beef. And that is what we have here at griddownchowdown.com, promo code Mary Grace. You are going to get this beautiful America First, American farmers, American ranchers, grass fed, grass finished, freeze dried beef. It's right here in the package. This is a pound of beef. It's not jerky, it's beef. It is ground beef, All you do is add water, and you can make whatever you want with this that you would normally make with ground beef. And when you buy this, you are supporting American ranchers and farmers, and you're protecting American farmland when you purchase from this America First company. When you go there and you use promo code Mary Grace, if you do the 24 serving monthly subscription, they're going to give you 4 free servings, and that is griddownchowdown.com. I'm gonna I'm gonna put the link up here. The link is also in the show notes. And I want to show you one more ad today for our friends at officialsynapse.com. I've been working with them to deal with a lot of health issues that I have, and I want to show you how to get in touch with them because we have to be healthy. Everybody has to be healthy to be able to fight the fight that we're fighting. And sometimes that means taking care of your own health first, putting on your own oxygen mask. Listen to this. We'll be right back and we'll hear more from Sam. Americans spend more now than ever on healthcare, and we're sicker than almost anybody in the world. We've put our trust in a system that's completely let us down. Dr. Troy Sproul and the team at Synapse Center for Health and Healing have changed all that. They are a functional medicine clinic, and they get to the root cause of what's made you sick in the first place. Once they do that, they give you solutions to help you get out of that. This is the way that medicine was meant to be practiced, and this is what they're doing. They're changing the entire system from the inside out, one person at a time, and you could be one of those people. And so when you're working with the team at Synapse, they're giving you solutions and not just prescriptions. That's a game changer for me. When you set up a free discovery call with Synapse, you're starting on a journey of healing. You're starting on a journey of getting answers. And that's why I've partnered with them, because I want you to be healthy. I want your family to be healthy. I want you to have all of the resources that you need to steward the body and the health that God's given you. Go to officialsynapse.com and tell them Mary Grace sent you. That's Official Synapse, SYNAPSE. Okay, we are back, and we're going to get Sam back here. So, Official Synapse, I forgot to change the QR code. That's where they are. That's Dr. Troy. Also, we had a live Q&A with Dr. Troy the other night, and it was fantastic. And then while I'm here, while I'm telling you this, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, we are going to have a live stream with Dr. Sean Baker, the carnivore doctor. We have been collaborating with him. He's an amazing person, so knowledgeable. We're going to talk about the Make America First, Make America Healthy agenda, not just carnivore diet. So if you are looking at understanding what's going on in the country in terms of making America healthy, and also just the world, America and beyond, this is a good show to watch, 5 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Now we're back with Sam here, and thank you for hanging out, Sam. Good to have you back. The Middle East. I mean, I don't even know where to start. You mentioned the Houthis, and you have extensive experience in the Middle East. Sometimes when we talk about what's going on there, it just feels like this Gordian knot that nobody can really figure out because we're talking about millennia worth of diplomatic relations and wars and rumors of wars and so many issues that are multi-layered, having to do with not just politics but religion because they're so deeply intertwined. Can you give us a rundown of what's you got like 5 minutes, go.
5 minutes of all the
None of that.
millennia
You
of
have none of
problems.
that. Just go from region to region and kind of give us a highlight of what we need to know.
Well, I mean, look, when Donald Trump left office at the end of his first term, we had the Abraham Accords, and we were
Yes.
standing on the brink of permanently ending all this Arab-Israeli hostility
Yes.
that had been generating not all of the issues, but many of the issues. And of course, Joe Biden destroyed all of that. It all came crashing down, and then he made the problem infinitely worse by just letting the Iranians completely out of the box, letting them sell oil.
Yeah.
So acquiring billions and billions and billions of dollars to build and buy all sorts of nefarious things and spread chaos and madness all throughout the Middle East. Okay, so Trump has now taken over, all of whatever it is. We're past 60 days now, right? I mean, we're barely into this
We're
thing.
just yeah, we're right to the 20th.
We're
Boom.
barely we're barely in we're barely
Mhm.
into this thing, and he has
Yeah.
inherited all of the results of this, which is just chaos, but all these various fissures, and trying really hard to get control over it, but just a lot of problems everywhere. The Houthis have effectively, the Houthis are basically a rebel group down in Yemen, and they control a big chunk of that country, which is desperately poor. And they're armed to the teeth and trained and equipped and worked with, and the Iranians work with them. So everything that they're doing, sinking ships in the Red Sea, is effectively Iran, right? I mean, they're Iranian surrogates, which is how the Iranians work.
Pretty much everything is Iran.
Precisely. I mean,
Which goes to Obama, Valerie
Hezbollah
Jarrett.
exists and is armed and trained
Yeah.
because of Iran. So there, unfortunately, at the heart of this are some really very difficult, intractable problems. So, for instance,
Mhm.
we have Gaza, and Gaza is this tiny little sliver of land stuck between Egypt and Israel.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's like 2 miles wide and 20 miles long at its max, and there's this plus 2 million plus people jammed into this place with no natural resources. It's a giant refugee camp. It's a hellhole.
Yeah.
And it's completely under the control of Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist group. They're dedicated to the destruction of Israel. They don't want coexistence. They want to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. So I think Donald Trump put his finger on it when he said, we can't go back to the status quo. And as long as we keep allowing this situation to exist, we're going to keep coming back to the same point. How about we get these people out of here and send them somewhere else?
Mhm.
So, as usual, he goes to the heart of the issue. The trick is, where the heck are you going to send them?
Right.
Nobody wants them. I mean, the Arabs talk a lot of smack about the Palestinians and how oppressed they are and how the Israelis are mean to them. But the Arabs hate the Palestinians. In private,
Yeah.
they say nothing but disparaging things about them. So the Jords don't want them. The Jordanians, the Egyptians don't want them. Nobody friggin' wants them. So
Mm.
there they sit. You leave them under the control of Hamas, you're going to have the same exact situation. You can't kill them all. We're a lot of folks just caught in the middle. These are men, women, children.
Mhm.
It's not
Mhm.
okay. That's there's no such solution. The
Yeah.
Egyptians are not letting them in. The Jordanians are not letting them in. Syria. I mean, the Syrian government. Here's what I think makes it really hard for Americans. Because I don't want to get lost in just jumping from one place.
Mhm.
Americans always want to reduce everything to like an old cowboy movie where there's the guys in the white hats and the guys in the black
Yeah.
hats.
Yeah.
And I look, I'm an American too, so I get it. I have the same inclination, except
Mhm.
in a lot of parts of the world, it's more like an old Japanese monster movie. There's Godzilla fighting some other monster in the middle of
Mhm.
Tokyo. Both the monsters are bad, and everybody's losing that they step on. Well, that's kind of like Syria. Assad and his regime was horrible and slaughtered people and authoritarian and oppressive. And now they're
Mm.
overthrown by a bunch of radical Islamic guys that are basically Al Qaeda with a different name.
Mhm.
So you replaced a very secular homicidal maniac with
Yeah.
a bunch of Islamic jihadi homicidal maniacs.
Mhm.
The situation is different. The situation didn't get better. So there's a lot of that going on, a lot of tremendous instability.
Mhm.
What would be helpful? Well, you hit the nail on the head a few minutes ago. A lot of this instability stems from Iran and the money and the weapons and the people they pump out of Tehran. Enforce the oil sanctions and cut off their money. Look
Mhm.
for ways to make them pay a price so it's not fun for them to do this crap anymore.
Mhm.
Go
Mhm.
to the source of these issues instead of kind of treating the symptoms.
Right. Right.
if that makes sense. Is it's we are in grave danger of, because there's so much instability, this spiraling out of control. And just because, I love to depress everybody, we should keep in mind that lurking in the background is the status of the Iranian nuclear weapons program. And
Right.
we don't know what the status is. So they may already have nukes, or they could have them tomorrow. And once they have nuclear weapons, and it is announced that they have, or we become aware of it, then everything changes, even, I mean, radically worse. The Israelis will not live in a Middle East where there is an Iranian nuclear threat,
Right.
because
Right.
they can't survive a nuclear strike. A
Mhm.
nuclear strike will eliminate the state of Israel. So the second they believe the Iranians have nukes, it's game on. Whatever they need to do to eliminate that threat,
Mhm. Mhm.
everything goes into overdrive, which I would suggest to you includes the possibility of them using their own nuclear weapons first, because they can't. And
And
that,
let's remind everybody where they got the enriched uranium. Let's just talk about that. Who provided
who,
that?
the Israelis,
The
or
Iranians.
the Iranians?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've gotten assistance from a whole host
Yeah.
of, of people. And let's keep in mind, look, I've probably said this to you before. I mean, everybody wants to talk about nuclear weapons like there are three guys in lab coats that know how to make them in the world.
Mhm.
We detonated the first nuke in 1945, people. That's 80 years
Mhm.
ago. It's 80-year-old technology. The North Koreans figured out how to do it. So come on, the idea that the Iranians have been working on it for 25
Mhm.
years, but they haven't cracked the code yet, that with all their assistance they get, you know, it's
Right.
a massive issue.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, was that depressing
Yeah,
enough and
no, no, no,
chaotic
that's
enough?
good, that's good. That's just a
All right.
good recap, yeah, and,
Okay.
I mean, we know, like, Trump announced last week that they took out the head of ISIS.
Yes.
Nobody's talking about that because the media is too busy talking about how Trump is defying these district court orders. Like, he's such a bad, orange man bad, you
Yes.
know, um
I love those cartoons. Orange Man
Yeah,
Bad.
yeah, he's
Yes.
defying the courts, like, really? What are they gonna do? I mean, Mike Davis was on America's Voice talking about this. He's like, "What are they gonna do? Are they gonna send their law clerks after Trump to arrest him?" I mean, this is crazy. And, so yeah, they're not, as usual, they're not talking about the real news. And so most people have no idea what's
No.
actually going on. And here's another example. The big thing that is in the news right now is just how evil, like the normies, when I go to the gym and I'm listening to people talk, they're talking about, the measles, and they're talking about Elon Musk. That's because Elon is what is Elon doing? Elon is, like, exposing it's the
Exposing corruption
craziest
and
thing.
fraud. Yeah.
It's crazy to me how easily people are manipulated and swayed to I mean, it's like, "Hold on, guys, like, you
Look,
literally you think he's a Nazi because he's not actually making laws, he's not doing anything except showing you. Like, we
right.
opened the books, and here's what's on the books, and you've allowed the media to tell you and convince you that he is public enemy number 1, to the point that there are people out, like, throwing Molotov cocktails on Teslas and
Yep.
vandalizing Teslas, which actually is a federal offense.
Yep.
And now they're getting arrested because they have been convinced. Again, this is where people are so easily swayed to think that they have the moral high ground to go out and vandalize somebody's property because of what the news told them about this guy. Like, that's messed up.
Yeah. Well, look, I think this is a really important point, because You're going back to talking about at the beginning, we were talking about people sort of celebrating, we're so back, we won, too bad. Not so fast, guys.
Yeah.
The war's not over. And one of the things you're pointing out is a huge portion of the population is still listening to news sources that are providing them with a completely
Yeah.
alternative reality. I mean, I make a point when I'm in the car and I can stand the psychic pain of tuning into MSNBC and other
Oh,
broadcasts
no.
because I want to
Sam.
hear that. And literally, it's like you have stepped through the looking
Yeah.
glass into an alternate reality. Or I get online, I read, hundreds of sites every day, and I include deliberately a number of ones that
Mhm.
are going to have the predictable liberal bias. And if
Yeah.
you were only getting your news from those sources, you would be living in a completely different world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If, for instance, DOE, the Department of Education, is being cut and ultimately will be eliminated, it's going to take an act of Congress to do it. Okay, one of the things that people are being told is that if you have student loans that are being repaid by the federal government, so there are many folks who went to work for the government under an agreement where if you worked there X number of years, they would repay your student loans.
Mhm.
But people are being told very clearly that that guarantee by the government will go away when DOE is shut down, and you will be stuck repaying all your federal. Well, in other words, the government's going to void their side of the contract.
Mhm.
That's completely untrue, completely illegal, and there's no factual basis for it.
Mhm.
But it's a
Mhm.
really good way to frighten young
Yeah.
professional folks that are now thinking, I'm staying here working for this municipality for 10 years to pay off, because they'll pay off my loan, and now I'm going to eat it all. Or the other story being bandied about is all these USAID workers scattered around the globe were all sent letters and told, you're fired and find your own way home.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just left with their family and their household possessions and their children wherever. Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
completely fictitious, not true. They were told you're being terminated, and they
Mhm.
were given a time period within which to arrange to return home,
Yeah.
yada, yada. But none of them were cut loose and
Mhm.
abandoned. But that story is,
Right.
those kinds of things are repeated all of the time to convince people that there are
Yeah.
all these evil things being done. And they
Right,
don't
and
bother to
and,
fact check it.
Social Security, Medicaid, same thing. There people are
That's right.
terrified,
That's right.
and I see it happening as well, and, like, I don't have to listen to the news, but thank you for doing that. I mean, that's you're taking one for the team. All I have
Well, I do have to go have a beer thereafter.
all I have to do is
I
go to the
guarantee you.
gym. All I have to do is go to the gym. I try not I can't do it every day. I can't there's certain times when all of these women are in the locker room. They all do, like, the water aerobics at a certain time, and so if I'm in there when they're all in there, I mean, I'm telling you, this is like you talk about, like, cackling hens, and,
Is
I
that a
mean
real thing, water aerobics? I thought somebody just
yes,
made that up.
yeah, and I don't even get me started, but
Okay.
it's anyway, they're in the locker room and, 5, 10 minutes of just listening to them talk, that tells me everything I need to
Yep.
know about what's on the news. So, it's the measles, it's, there's all the medical, like, everything medical, and they buy everything hook, line, and sinker, whatever they're told, and then my doctor said and we had RSV, and my doctor said that we should get the thing, the thing, and it's new, and it lasts for 2 years, and, "Oh, I haven't gotten that one yet, but I got the shingles one," blah, 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 and I'm like, "Yeah, look in the mirror, look at yourself. You are the picture of you are the target audience for this crap. You weigh, like, 300 pounds. You've been doing water aerobics for how long? And look at you, and listen to what's coming out of your mouth, right? It's just and they buy into the panic porn, that's what it is, and I heard one lady telling her friend that, it was during February. She was saying, "Well, the friend had on a, Black Lives Matter shirt, and this lady goes, "Well, we can't celebrate that now because we have a racist president. He's not even talking about Black History Month." And I'm like, "What planet are you on? He had a Black History Month, event at the White House. Like, you can't be that retarded," you know? And, but here we are. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but you're absolutely right, and this is the thing. I mean, from a political standpoint,
Yeah,
when I'm talking to people in Pennsylvania, on the ground,
yeah,
sort of an organized standpoint, I say basically the same thing all the time. You guys, yes, Trump's in the White House. That's great and tremendous victory and
yeah,
yada yada.
yeah,
There are still vast numbers of people out
yeah,
there that believe all these things that you think are so fantastic, nobody could believe them. And still, like you say, that they've got 9 million health problems, and they keep, every time they go to the doctor, they get another drug prescribed for
mhm,
them, and then a
mhm.
drug for the symptoms for that
Yeah,
drug. And they
yeah.
keep doing this. Or, people
Yeah.
that they
And
got back, they got,
they talk about these doctors like they're demigods, and,
that's right. That's right.
in my area is we have a big teaching hospital, level 1 trauma center, and they've all had joint replacements, like double, like, I've had both shoulders done and 2 elbows and 3 knees, and I'm like, every that's it, you've had, like, amputations is what you had. Every time you have a joint replacement,
Yeah.
you've had a joint amputated, and
Yeah, and
you're
now you're doing
talking
it
about
like you're, yeah,
yeah.
you're replacing your knee for the 3rd time,
Yeah,
and
and
you're
you're talking about this surgeon like they walk on water. "Well, I had
yeah,
so and so, and I had so and so, and oh yeah, he's good." I'm like, "They're these are not I mean, you might as well get Taylor Swift doing this because you're
yeah.
talking about these people like they're rock stars."
Yeah, well,
It's
they
great.
keep in mind these are the same people that took your little boy because, he wasn't getting along with everybody in school, and told him that he was a little girl and started calling him
Yeah,
Susie,
yeah,
and the next thing you know, these august medical professionals seriously
mhm.
advised that, "You know what? You need to castrate this kid
Because it's affirming.
because we're affirming him." Or
Mhm. Yeah.
what's the New Jersey now doing? New Jersey, actually, in the hospitals in New Jersey, when the child is born, they are asking the parents to advise, independent of the, what I always thought was obvious biological sex characteristics.
Mhm,
They're asking the parents to tell them whether that's a boy or a girl, or I think there are other
mhm.
options. So that's your, those are your
Yeah.
medical professionals in the hospital are saying that
Mhm,
you just had a little boy, but you can tell them you now know
mhm,
he's really a girl, and they will issue a birth certificate saying that that's a female child that was
mm.
born. And this is,
This is insane.
yeah, it
This
literally is
is
the
mental
definition of it.
illness.
Yes, it
This is
is.
mental
It's
illness,
like through
yeah.
the looking glass, oh
Mhm.
my God, all of you need to be institutionalized kind
Yeah.
of crap.
Yeah. I would
And
say
yet,
jailed. They need to be jailed.
uh, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
I mean, think about
everybody
what
that's involved in these surgeries, by and
yeah,
large,
and what's gonna
should be
happen
rotting
to
behind
these
bars.
children, like, when to me, this is abuse. It's abuse.
Yeah.
Mental, emotional, social, a all of it. And, I mean, that
No, I look at, there's
this
nothing,
is a rabbit
the concept of abusing a child is one of those things that,
yeah,
for me personally, you should
yeah,
just be put down for,
yeah.
if I can use that expression. I mean, there's nothing lower or more disgusting or subhuman than that, and this is the ultimate form of that, being
Mhm.
done by institutions. Okay, well, cool. I thought when I was talking about nuclear weapons that I had hit the bottom of the depression pit, but no, we managed to find a way
No,
to go
no, crazy.
even
Yeah, yeah.
lower.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're talking I took my dad to the doctor, last year, and it was his our local practitioner, not the VA, and they had a new they had the office had been bought out or whatever, and they had new paperwork that you had to fill out, and I never do the online paperwork, right? I'm like, "No, I am not I don't work
Right.
for you. I'm not gonna print this out at home. You
Right.
print it out, give me the form, and then if you
Yeah.
want it electronic, you rescan it and do it yourself.
Exactly.
So, but, but I'm like, so we're filling out the form and they've got all these questions for my dad, gender. And I was like, I, I'm like, he's 86 years old. This has been long settled. And I said, we're not, and I crossed it out. I was like, and I talked to the office manager. I said, don't ever do this again. I
Yeah.
said, and she goes, well, we have to. I said, who, but it says who? And, well, they make us do it. I'm like, why? Well, we have to screen. I said, "Isn't that what the face-to-face visit is for?" I said, "Because if you're screening for mental illness, I understand that because that's what this is, and sometimes you do have to screen for that, but don't do it on the intake form with an 86-year-old man who doesn't have any idea what the hell you're talking about. That's
I,
insulting."
when I went to the doctor the other day, the nurse, who's seeing me before the doctor comes in the room starts asking me these questions that are all like, "Do you know why you're here today, Mr. Faddis?" And or these other, and there's like three of these questions, and finally, I couldn't deal with it anymore. I was like, "So just to be clear, are you asking me these questions because you're trying to figure out if I'm really here, or do you not actually know the answers to these questions? I just want to know how seriously I should be taking
Yeah,
this. Because if you don't actually know the answers to the questions, like
yeah.
you don't know why I'm here, I might want to think about leaving. I don't, I, you know,
Yeah,
I,
it's crazy. I mean, and the medical world, and like when this nurse was telling me they have to do all this stuff, I said, actually, you have the upper hand here. I said, there is a nursing shortage. And all you have to
yeah,
do is put your foot down and say, no. We are
that's
not
right.
doing this. We're not asking these
Right.
questions. We're not wearing the thing. You want us to show up. You want us to do our jobs. We're jumping through all these hoops for you. We're
There
taking
you go.
these things. No, we're drawing the line. You want the information,
That's
you
right.
send it out in the mail, you get a survey, you do whatever you're going to do. We're not doing this. This is degrading.
A- Amen. That would be the solution
Yeah,
to
I
a
said,
lot of
if
our
you just
problems,
said
but
no, it would put
just
an end
stand up
to
and
it because they need
just
you. Yeah, I said,
disobey.
they need you. They can't, there's not
Yep.
enough of you. And it's just the concept.
Yes.
It's like, I'm like, that there's a shortage. So you do with it what you will. But people are so afraid. They don't want to make waves or, don't want to lose my job. I'm like, trust me, even if you lose your job, we've seen this with with the shots. They're begging you to come back because they
That's
realize
right.
they made a mistake. So it's just, I
That's
mean,
right.
I guess we're getting into a lot of like the human nature, human psychology side of things today, but it's important because
We started as a nation of people
yeah,
who had no problem with saying, "I will not
right,
comply."
exactly. That's the
Need
whole
to we need a
basis,
lot more of that
right?
back.
Yeah,
That's it. That's
yeah.
exactly right.
And we've
No,
got
it
and
ain't
we're hitting,
happening.
next year, 2026 is 250 years of our nation. And
There we
so
go.
I hope that we are coming closer to the original intent of our founders and not further away. But everything we've talked
Yes.
about today is illustrations of just how much we as Americans need to reclaim and step back into that role of
Yes.
not just taking personal responsibility, but
Yes.
taking authority that we have as sovereign individuals with
Yep.
agency, and that's
Yep.
really what we're talking about here. So,
Yep.
Sam, how can everybody follow you? How can they find your work?
The easiest way to find me is to go to our to And magazine that my wife and I run, andmagazine.substack.com. And then I'm on X and I'm on Facebook way too much, even though I don't like it. But as you know, many of the patriot groups in Pennsylvania use Facebook, so it's a way to
Yes.
communicate. And Getter and Truth Social, but And Magazine will
Yes.
get you there. And I got to give a shout out. I saw at some point much earlier in the broadcast that my distant Scottish
Yes,
cousin
Scott.
popped up and was saying hello, and
Yes.
well, maybe one of these days he and
I
I'll
was
have a
gonna
pint
say, you
together
need to go to
someday.
Scotland and meet up.
I love Scotland. I mean, no offense. There's a reason why there are no Scottish restaurants in the United States. There are great cuisines, and Scottish cuisine is
Well, you
not
can
one
have a
of them. I
pint.
mean, there's well, you can have a pint, and they've always got scotch as
Yeah,
long as you
okay,
drink in
okay.
moderation, and that numbs the taste buds a little bit, and
Well,
that
maybe
makes
Scott
everything
can
else
come
go
here.
down okay. Scott, come here. We find. I mean, when
Yeah,
I have been to Scotland, and after a couple of days, I was seeking out the Indian restaurants to find a
nice,
place to
interesting.
have dinner.
Just as long as Scott, don't bring your cat Thomas because, uh, Sam's dogs would eat him. He's
Homer would kill him
Thomas
in a
is too big
heartbeat.
to get out of the way.
Homer's a vicious
Yeah, yeah,
murderer.
we can't
He's
but yeah, just leave Thomas at home, otherwise he can come to America. Um, okay, I don't know if you're still there, Scott, but we're talking about you and your cat. Um, so good show, always a good conversation with Sam.
always good.
Yes.
Been too long. Nice
Yes,
to
and
catch
thank
up.
you for being here, Sam. Everybody, we will be back here on the Mary Grace Show. I mentioned earlier that we will be live tomorrow with our friend Dr. Sean Baker, the carnivore doctor. Please always follow marygracemedia.com, get on the mailing list, and never miss a show. We will be back tomorrow. Everybody have a great day. Get outside, touch some grass, look at the sky, breathe fresh air, and leave your phone behind.